Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Step back in the video today, and today the Houston Texans get destroyed by the Cleveland Browns, 36-22. Embarrassing performance by the Texans today, but I'm not too upset about it. I'll tell you why. I mean, Texans team without Tank Dell, C.J. Stroud, and Will Anderson Jr. going up against the best defense in the NFL. And that's not... I'm sorry, you talk about the 49ers defense. They have a great defense. The Ravens are a great defense as well. But I believe the Browns are the best defense in the NFL. And sure, you could make the argument that things would have been different if C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson Jr. are out there today for the Texans. I'm not going to even bring up Tank Dell because he wouldn't matter because he's out for the season. Now, Will Anderson Jr. and C.J. Stroud are two guys who realistically could have played in this game potentially. But C.J. Stroud, there was no way he was going to be able to play with his concussion. But, difference is C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson Jr. will be able to return back next week. Tank Dell will not be returning back at all this season. And honestly, I think this game would have been a lot closer if Davis Mills would have been the starter in the first place. I think he showed a lot of good things once he was put in the ball game. Either, I believe it was end of the third quarter or early fourth quarter, he was put in and threw 15 for 32 for 149 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Maybe things could have been different in this ball game if Davis Mills was the quarterback. Maybe the Texans, if not win this ball game, had a chance to win this ball game if Davis Mills was the quarterback the whole game. Obviously, the defense would have still struggled with, having a hard time dealing with Joe Flacco and dealing with Amari Cooper, but I feel like the Texans' offense would have been more successful with Davis Mills as the starting quarterback than compared to having Case Keenum in the early parts of this game when Davis Mills was not playing. I'm not a big Davis Mills fan, and I know he struggled a lot last year, but I thought he showed some really good things when he was out there today. Obviously, nothing where you can talk about a potential job switch with C.J. Stroud. Obviously, C.J. Stroud is the starter. Now, for sure, Davis Mills would be the starting quarterback if, let's say, C.J. Stroud is not able to go Week 17 coming up against the Tennessee Titans. But honestly, I will sell this to everybody. I don't think it would be a terrible thing to start Davis Mills at Week 17. If C.J. Stroud is not able to go, from what we saw against Davis Mills against a good Browns defense, what do you think he can do against a not-so-great Titans defense? Which the Texans have shown they can stop their defense before. And Derrick Henry as well. So if C.J. Stroud is not ready to return next week, if that concussion is still bad, which I 100% believe that C.J. Stroud will be ready to go next Sunday, I don't think there will be any problem with him coming back. But if there is, I am trusting the Texans and Davis Mills out there in Week 17 against the Tennessee Titans, and I 100% believe the Houston Texans can get a win against the Tennessee Titans with Davis Mills. If the Texans can beat the Titans with Case Keenum, I know the Texans can beat the Titans with Davis Mills because I think he's better than Case Keenum. And also, another thing, there's a chance Will Levis might not be out there next week and Ryan Tannehill might be starting. And it's way better to have Will Levis out there than it is to have Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill did do a solid job against Seattle today, but Tennessee would be a lot more dangerous if they had Will Levis. The Texans lose 136-22. Let's go to the scoring summary. So first half, the first quarter, first touchdown was Jerome Ford, 4-yard touchdown run, 7-0. Then the second quarter, Joe Flacco, 75-yard touchdown pass to Amari Cooper, it's 14-0. Then you have a Dameon Pierce 98-yard kickoff returns, 14-7. I know there's not a lot of good things to look at this loss, but I really like the idea of putting Dameon Pierce in the backfield on kickoffs and having him return kicks. I thought he did a really, really good job returning kicks today. Obviously, he had that 98-yard touchdown return, but he had some other nice returns in this ballgame. I really liked the Texans using him on the kickoff returns. Then you have Joe Flacco, 32-yard touchdown pass, a 21-yard touchdown pass to David Njoku. They go for the 2-point conversion because at this time, after the Dameon Pierce touchdown, the Browns kicker got hurt, so they didn't have any kicker. They couldn't go for extra points. They didn't have an emergency kicker. They go for the 2-point conversion. They get it. It's 22-7. Then third quarter, Joe Flacco throws to Amari Cooper for a 7-yard touchdown pass. Start of his and his second touchdown of his legacy game, best game of his career, most receiving yards out of any Browns player in history, out of any Browns wide receiver or tight end or running back. It's 28-7 after that. Fourth quarter, you have a Kareem Hunt 1-yard touchdown run. They go for the 2-point conversion again. When they scored the touchdown with Cooper, the 2-pointer failed, but this time they do it again, and this time they complete it to guess who? Amari Cooper. It's 36-7. Then Davis Mills throws a 5-yard touchdown pass to Nico Collins. The Texans go for 2. Davis passes to Nico Collins again. It's 36-15. Then the Texans get the onside kick. Not a lot of extra points. Not a lot of extra kicks. Working this season. Not a lot of onside. What I meant is not a lot of onside kicks have been working this season for any teams, but the Texans managed to get one. And Davis Mills was a 1-yard touchdown pass to Andrew Beck. I don't know why I couldn't say onside kicks. And then the extra point is good for Farrenbarren. It's 36-22. All right, game leaders. Joe Flacco threw 27 for 42, 368 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Davis Mills threw 15 for 30, 249 passing yards, and 2 passing touchdowns. Keep in mind, Mills didn't come into the game until at the end of the third, or it was at the end of it was either the end of the third or the beginning of the fourth. Mills came in. I think it was with 2 minutes remaining in that third quarter. Jerome Ford had 15 carries for 25 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. Devin Singletary had 9 carries for 44 rushing yards, while Amari Cooper, of course, led the Browns with receiving yards with 11 receptions for 265 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Joe Flacco threw nearly 400 passing yards, and there was only 103 passing yards outside of Amari Cooper for Joe Flacco today. Joe Flacco threw 368 and 265 were to Amari Cooper. Dalton Schultz had 8 receptions for 61 receiving yards for the Texans today as well. So great day for Dalton Schultz in this game. Davis Mills ran 2 times for 9 yards. Robert Woods ran 1 time for 7 yards. Noah Brown had 3 receptions for 38 receiving yards. Brevin Jordan had 2 receptions for 27 receiving yards. Devin Singletary had 3 receptions for 19 receiving yards. Nico Collins had 4 receptions for 18 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. Xavier Hutchinson had 1 reception for 18 receiving yards. Robert Woods had 2 receptions for 14 receiving yards. Damian Pierce had 1 reception for 10 receiving yards. And Andrew Beck had 2 receptions for 6 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. Devin Singletary fumbled and recovered his own fumble. Texans defensive stats, Desmond King the second led the Texans in tackles with 11. 2 tackles for loss. Following players had 7, DeAndre Houston Carson and Christian Harris. Following players had 6. Denzel Perryman, Steven Nelson, Majay Sanders. Jerry Hughes had 5. Adrian Amos had 4. Following players had 3. Jalen Petrie, Millie Collins, Derek Barnett, Derek Stingley Jr. Following players had 2, Henry To'oTo'o, Neville Hewitt. Following players had 1, Jimmy Ward, Kaimi Farrenbarren, kicker, Noah Brown, wide receiver, Kadar Holman, Jake Hansen, Kurt Heinisch, Robert Woods, wide receiver, D'Angelo Ross, Khalil Davis, also Devin Singletary, running back. The Texans had 1 sack today, only 1, and that was Jerry Hughes. They had 8 tackles for loss, though, 2 for Desmond King II. 1 for DeAndre Houston Carson, 1 for Majay Sanders, 1 for Jerry Hughes, 2 for Derek Barnett, 1 for Malik Collins. And that was it for Texans stats in this game. Defensively, interceptions. He had 2 interceptions in this game. DeAndre Houston Carson had an interception, and Derek Stingley Jr. had an interception as well. Now, for Cleveland, they had 2 interceptions. Duron Harmon had an interception, which he returned for 1 yard, and Jeremiah Uswa-Kamara had an interception that he returned for 8 yards. Great win for the Browns today. Texans take a tough loss, but they win out. They'll probably be in the playoffs at the wild card, at either the 6th or 7th wild card. The Texans will probably make it into the wild card if they can win these last 2 games against the Titans and the Colts. I have belief that the Texans can win these final 2 games in the season with C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson Jr. back, but let's see what happens. And Blake Cashman as well, who they've missed in the last 2 games as well. Let me know your thoughts on this loss to the Texans in the comment section. Peace out. Go Texans.